Welcome to the Forest Analytics Landing Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Russell. In this podcast, we'll talk about how data and analytics are transforming the forest products industry. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. Today, I want to talk about coding, and especially want to talk about what's called the no-code movement that's becoming more popular in the area of data science and analytics. Now, I think a lot of us in forestry and natural resources have always sought people that are programmers or that are coders, people that have skills in software like R and Python and SAS and Julia and some of these other newer programming languages that a lot of our databases run on and a lot of our statistical analyses need in terms of getting a good result. And so I think this no-code movement is one to be aware of as an employer, as you're looking for people with the skills that you need for your organization, and as an employee, if you are a programmer or you are in data analysis, I think it's important to understand and to be aware of this no-code movement and what it means for us in the forestry industry. And so in general, we can think about the no-code movement, and people have defined it as a type of web development that allows for the development of software using a graphical user interface rather than writing code. This is really not new. There's been lots of tools that can be considered no-code around for a long time. I think of one as, I remember one time I was building a personal website and I went to Squarespace. That's a popular tool I see a lot of ads for on the web that develops websites basically with a point-and-click technique. And you don't necessarily have to write the code, like you don't have to know HTML or CSS to make a website. You can use one of these systems like Squarespace and Wix and some of these other website design tools that I've seen out there to develop your website for you. So that can be considered a no-code system. Another example of this, in some of the programs that we may be familiar with, like as an example, when I first went to graduate school, everyone learned SAS to do their statistical analysis. SAS was the most common tool used to do data analysis. Well, SAS has another product called Jump, which is still statistical software, but it doesn't require you to code and to program like SAS program does. And so what Jump is, it's basically the same tool, but it uses a graphical user interface and does an interactive, more visual statistical data analysis. So you don't necessarily need to write the code, but you do need to know what to click to get, whether it's a graph that you're interested in or some analysis of, effects of A on B. If you're doing an experimental design or you're looking at a regression, you need to know what to click. But if you click the right things, it basically produces the code in the background and you get the output, on the screen in front of you. And so that's another example of a no-code system that does data analysis. And so these are not new by any means, but this no-code movement, I think, is gaining a lot of popularity among businesses because it allows more people to have a say in what the feature, whether you're designing a web application or a data analysis, what that feature looks like. And that's really one of the big benefits of a no-code system is the ability to involve non-programmers into the development of these tools. And so some people in other fields have referred to this as citizen developers or citizen data scientists. And so these people where it's not necessarily data science that's their day-to-day job or their day-to-day responsibility, but their primary role is maybe outside of analytics or outside of the data and number crunching fields. And so that's really one of the big benefits is just the ability to make accessible the creation of these programs or the analysis of this data set. And so that's what really is attractive for a no-code system. And so even with these no-code systems, you have to know a little bit about your domain of interest. So maybe in our case, it's forestry. And, if we're looking at something like, the supply of wood in a given region, you need to know something about the forests and the wood supply in the region to have a say in what it might look like. And so that's really another benefit of this no-code movement is that we still are involving domain expertise in this system. Now, some of the drawbacks to a no-code movement is the ability to customize. And so that is really one of the big drawbacks to a no-code movement, is that you really rely on many of these systems that do no-code for you. And so there are lots of different web development softwares. I've been using one called Airtable that I'm trying to learn more about. As I learn more about the no-code movement, there's lots of different no-code systems that you can basically bring your data into or use to develop a web application or a website or something like that that might be worth looking into. But the drawback is that you're really, you have to use that system. And so if you want to do something that's not a feature of that no-code system, well, you can't customize. And so that's been a drawback of kind of adopting a no-code approach. It's just that barrier of you can't customize like maybe you need to for something. But the no-code systems do other things like doing routine tasks, evaluating new features quickly. You might save money without having to invest in a programmer's time. Programmers, often are very highly skilled and technical experts. And so if this no-code system might work for you to kind of distribute more of the, what used to be coding time, to distribute more of that and to automate some of those routine tasks, maybe that's worth looking into. And so something, and maybe another asset of a no-code system. There are a lot of skeptics of the no-code movement. As you might suspect, people that have been programming for decades might say, well, my job can't be replaced by a website or some tool, and we might want to, and we need those skills to develop, really specific, to perform specific tasks, to come up with answers to complex problems. And so you can imagine there are lots of skeptics to a no-code system. And so some people on the flip side will counter and say that the converse of a no-code movement is a code-first movement, or one that's really favoring writing scripts, favors the technical experts in terms of the programmers and the coders that are bringing together data sets from databases, analyzing those data sets, producing them into meaningful reports or other ways that decision makers might need. And so that code-first movement is really one that people say can be highly customized, and it can be reproducible and replicable. And so there's still lots of, not to say that there's only two camps and you need to be in one of them, but there are lots of people that still will tout the benefits of understanding coding and understanding programming, and to really value that within a company or organization. And so I wanted to bring this up because I think it's important, as we think about what this fits when we're looking at people and the skills that they have to do our forestry analysis, our programming, our coding. I think it's really important to understand about what this no-code movement is within the data science world, and what it might mean for us, in the forestry and those folks that are in the climate tech space. I think it's really important to understand the benefits and the drawbacks of a no-code system as a part of organizations. And so again, I think I'd really be interested if you and your company are doing some of these no-code systems, trying them, implementing them. I'd love to hear about it. I'm still learning about many of these systems myself, as someone that's was taught, here's how we do coding, and here's, learned SAS and learned R pretty early on in my career. And I basically stuck with that and said, well, the only solution to a problem is to code it. That's kind of been my philosophy, but trying to learn more. And so again, if you are using these no-code systems, I'd love to hear about it. So send me an email, and would love to chat more about this as well. So that does it for the podcast. Thanks for listening to the Forest Analytics Landing Podcast. For more information on how data and analytics can empower your organization, visit arbor-analytics.com.